My sister looked me dead in the eyes at her own wedding and said, "Get your daughter out of here, she's ruining my photos." My 8-year-old little girl, dressed in the white tulle dress I had spent $300 on, walked down that aisle sobbing in front of 300 guests. Her tiny shoulders shook as strangers watched her humiliation. I didn't scream. I didn't make a scene. I scooped my baby up, held her against my chest, and walked out without saying a single word to anyone. But the next morning, I handed my sister's brand new husband one small envelope. 48 hours later, the marriage was over, and my sister finally understood that some mistakes you cannot take back. My name is Corinne Bellamy. I am 34 years old, and I work as a pediatric nurse at a hospital just outside Richmond, Virginia. I've spent the last 6 years working night shifts, changing bedpans, comforting scared children, and somehow still making it to school, pickup on time. Being a single mother was never part of my plan, but when my ex-husband decided that fatherhood was too much responsibility, I learned to stop making plans and start making adjustments. My daughter Willa is 8 years old. She has my late father's eyes, this deep brown color that looks almost golden in the sunlight, and she has the kindest heart of anyone I have ever known. Willa is shy around new people. She speaks softly and often hides behind my leg when strangers try to talk to her. But once she trusts you, once she lets you into her little world, she loves with her whole chest. She draws pictures for people. She remembers everyone's birthday. She asks how your day was and actually listens to the answer. Willa adored her Aunt Tamsin, absolutely adored her. In Willa's eyes, Tamsin was everything glamorous and exciting. She wore beautiful clothes and always smelled like expensive perfume. She had a fancy job planning events for wealthy people and a handsome fiancé who drove a car that looked like it belonged in a movie. When Tamsin asked Willa to be her flower girl, my daughter literally screamed with joy. She jumped up and down in our tiny living room and asked me probably 100 times if it was really true, if Aunt Tamsin really wanted her to be part of the wedding. I should tell you about my sister. Tamsin is 31 years old, 3 years younger than me, and she has spent her entire life being the star of every room she walks into. She is beautiful in that effortless way that makes other women feel invisible. Tall and slender with perfect cheekbones and hair that always falls exactly the right way. Growing up, Tamsin was the one who won pageants and got the leads in school plays and dated the captain of the football team. I was the one who stayed home and helped our mother with dinner. Our mother, Georgette, never made any secret about who her favorite was. She kept Tamsin's pageant crowns displayed in the living room for years. She framed Tamsin's prom, photos, but somehow never got around to framing mine. When Tamsin got engaged to Dawson Oakes, our mother cried and called it the happiest day of her life. When I got engaged years earlier, she asked if I was sure I was ready. Dawson Oakes was the man my sister had chosen to spend her life with. 35 years old, a regional sales manager for some medical supply company, and charming in that way that always made me slightly uncomfortable. He smiled too much. He complimented too easily. Everything about him felt like a performance, like he was always playing a role and waiting for applause. But Tamsin was in love, or at least in love with the idea of the wedding, and nobody was going to tell her otherwise. Our father, Hugh Bellamy, passed away 3 years ago. He was the peacekeeper in our family, the one who noticed when I was being overlooked and quietly made sure I knew I mattered. When he was sick, I was the one who moved back home to help. I was the one who drove him to chemotherapy appointments and sat with him during the bad nights when the pain was too much. Tamsin visited when she could, which was not very often. She was busy planning her career, building her future, and our mother made excuses for her every single time. I never confronted any of this. I swallowed my resentment year after year and told myself that keeping the peace was more important than being right. I told myself that family meant sacrifice, even when the sacrifice only seemed to go in one direction. When Tamsin announced her engagement, I decided to try, really try. I wanted Willa to have a good relationship with her aunt. I wanted to believe that maybe things could be different now that we were all adults. So I took extra shifts at the hospital to afford a generous wedding gift. I spent $300 I absolutely could not spare on Willa's flower girl dress. I smiled through every bridal shower and engagement party and told myself this was what good sisters do. The morning of the wedding, Willa woke up before dawn. She was too excited to sleep. She sat in our hotel room practicing her petal toss over and over again, watching herself in the mirror, making sure every movement was perfect. "Mommy, do you think Aunt Tamsin will cry happy tears when she sees me?" I knelt down and smoothed her hair away from her face. "I think she is going to be so proud of you, baby. You are going to do amazing." Willa smiled at me with such pure joy, such innocent excitement, and I felt my heart squeeze tight inside my chest. I had no idea that in just a few hours I would be carrying my sobbing child out of that ceremony while 300 people watched in silence. I had no idea that my sister would choose perfect photographs over her own niece's dignity. And I certainly had no idea that by the next morning, I would hold the evidence that would destroy everything Tamsin thought she had built. But I am getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how it all happened. The wedding was scheduled for the first Saturday of October at a restored barn venue on a vineyard about 40 minutes outside Richmond. Tamsin had spent 18 months planning every single detail. She had mood boards and Pinterest collections and a spreadsheet that tracked everything from the exact shade of ivory for the napkins to the precise timing of the sunset for her outdoor photographs. This wedding was not just a celebration of marriage. It was a production, and my sister was the director. I arrived at the venue the night before with Willa for the rehearsal dinner. The place was stunning, I have to admit. Rolling hills covered in grapevines stretched out in every direction. The barn itself had been transformed into something out of a magazine, with crystal chandeliers hanging from exposed wooden beams and thousands of tiny white lights wrapped around every post and railing. Tamsin had spared no expense. Our mother kept reminding everyone that the wedding was costing nearly $80,000, as if the price tag was something to be proud of rather than obscene. Willa held my hand as we walked through the venue, her eyes wide with wonder. She had never seen anything so fancy in her entire life. Our world was small, our apartment was small, our budget was small, but here was her aunt creating something that looked like a fairy tale, and Willa believed she was going to be part of it. The rehearsal itself went smoothly enough. Willa practiced her walk down the aisle 3 times until the wedding coordinator, a severe woman with a clipboard and a headset, declared it acceptable. Tamsin barely looked at her niece during the entire rehearsal. She was too busy examining flower arrangements and arguing with the photographer about lighting angles and checking her phone for updates from the caterer. At the rehearsal dinner, I sat at a table near the back with Willa and a few distant cousins I barely knew. Tamsin and Dawson held court at the head table, with our mother and his parents and the wedding party. Every few minutes, someone would stand up and give a toast about what a perfect couple they were, how lucky Tamsin was, how Dawson was the catch of the century. I watched him accept the praise with that smooth smile of his arm draped possessively around my sister's shoulders, and I felt that familiar unease settle in my stomach. There was something about Dawson that I could never quite name. He said all the right things. He remembered birthdays and brought flowers and called our mother Mom, even though they had only known each other for 2 years. But his charm felt manufactured, like he had studied what a good man was supposed to look like and was performing the role rather than living it. I mentioned this to my mother once, early in the engagement, and she dismissed me immediately. "You are just jealous because your marriage failed and Tamsin found someone wonderful. Try to be happy for your sister for once." So I stopped mentioning it. I smiled when Dawson was around and kept my doubts to myself and focused on making sure Willa had a good experience. That was all I could control. The morning of the wedding, I woke Willa at 7 to start getting ready. The bridal party was gathering in a suite at the venue for hair and makeup, and even though I was not a bridesmaid, I was expected to bring Willa early so she could be styled with the other girls. I dressed my daughter in comfortable clothes for the drive and packed her flower girl dress carefully in a garment bag. She chattered the whole way there about how excited she was, how she had dreamed about this day, how she was going to make Aunt Tamsin so proud. The bridal suite was chaos when we arrived. Bridesmaids in silk robes crowded around mirrors. A team of makeup artists and hairstylists worked with mechanical efficiency. Champagne bottles sat open on every surface. My mother floated through the room like she was the one getting married, accepting compliments about how beautiful the bride was going to be. Tamsin sat in a director's chair in the center of it all, her hair in large rollers, her face half finished with makeup. She looked up when we entered but did not smile. "Willa, come here. Let me see you." My daughter walked over obediently, her face shining with eagerness. Tamsin examined her like she was inspecting merchandise. "Her hair is flat. Did you not use volumizing products? And what is that on her chin? Is that a scratch? We need concealer on that immediately. The photos will show everything." Willa's smile faltered. She touched her chin where she had scraped it 2 days ago falling off her bicycle. "I am sorry, Aunt Tamsin. I did not mean to get hurt." Tamsin waved her hand dismissively. "Just fix it. Someone fix it." A makeup artist swooped in and led Willa away to a chair. I watched my daughter sit very still, her little hands folded in her lap, her earlier excitement dimming into something more careful. She was learning in that moment that her aunt's love came with conditions, that she needed to be perfect to be acceptable. I should have said something right then. I should have told Tamsin that her niece was not a prop to be managed, but I did what I always did with my family. I stayed quiet and hoped things would get better. They did not get better. The ceremony was scheduled to begin at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, timed precisely so that the golden hour light would bathe everything in that warm glow Tamsin wanted for her photographs. 300 guests filled the white chairs arranged in perfect rows across the manicured lawn. The vineyard stretched out behind the altar like a painting, and the October sky was impossibly blue, without a single cloud to interfere with the aesthetic my sister had demanded. I sat in the second row on the left side, right behind my mother. Willa was with the wedding coordinator at the back of the aisle, waiting for her cue to begin the processional. I kept turning around to catch glimpses of her, my heart swelling with pride every time I saw her little face peeking out from behind the trellis, where the bridal party had gathered. She looked beautiful. The white tulle dress floated around her like she was a tiny angel. The hairstylist had curled her hair into soft ringlets and tucked a small crown of baby's breath behind her ear. She was perfect, and she was so incredibly nervous. The string quartet began playing, and the ceremony started. The groomsmen walked out first, followed by the bridesmaids in their dusty rose gowns. Each one moved with practiced precision down the aisle while the photographer crouched at various angles, capturing every moment. Then came the moment Willa had been waiting for. The coordinator gave her a gentle nudge, and my daughter stepped onto the white runner. She held her basket of rose petals with both hands, her knuckles white from gripping it so tightly. She took one step, then another, reaching into the basket and scattering petals exactly the way she had practiced. The guests smiled at her. A few whispered about how adorable she was. I pressed my hand to my chest and felt tears prick my eyes. Willa made it about halfway down the aisle when it happened. Her foot caught on a slight ripple in the runner, and she stumbled forward. She did not fall. She caught herself immediately and stayed upright. But the stumble caused her to release a handful of petals unevenly, and a few of them scattered outside the designated path onto the grass. It was nothing. It was absolutely nothing. A tiny moment that any normal person would have found endearing. An 8-year-old child being a child at a wedding. But I watched my sister's face at the altar, and I saw something shift behind her eyes. Tamsin's jaw tightened. Her smile remained frozen in place, but it no longer reached her eyes. She stared at Willa with an expression I can only describe as cold irritation. Willa noticed. Of course she noticed. Children always notice when adults are displeased with them, even when those adults try to hide it. My daughter froze in the middle of the aisle, her hand still in the basket, her eyes locked on her aunt's face. She was waiting for reassurance. She was waiting for a smile or a nod or any sign that everything was okay. Instead, Tamsin leaned toward one of her bridesmaids and whispered something. The bridesmaid's eyes went wide. She glanced at Willa, then back at Tamsin, clearly uncertain. Then my sister spoke, loud enough that at least the first 5 rows could hear her clearly. "She is messing up the shot. Someone get her off the aisle." The words hit Willa like a physical blow. I watched my daughter's face crumple in real time, her lower lip trembling, her eyes filling with tears. She looked around desperately, trying to find me in the crowd of faces, trying to understand what she had done wrong. A bridesmaid stepped forward awkwardly and took Willa by the arm. She guided my sobbing child off the aisle and toward the side, away from the photographer's frame. Willa did not resist. She just cried. These horrible silent tears streaming down her cheeks while 300 people watched in uncomfortable silence. Nobody said anything. Not one single person spoke up. My mother stared straight ahead as if nothing was happening. The groom shifted on his feet and examined his cufflinks. The guests exchanged uneasy glances but remained seated, unwilling to cause a scene. I was already moving. I pushed past the people in my row without excusing myself and walked straight to my daughter. She saw me coming and reached for me with both arms, her basket of petals dropping forgotten to the ground. I picked her up. She wrapped her arms around my neck and buried her face in my shoulder, her small body shaking with sobs. She was trying so hard to keep quiet. Even in her humiliation, my 8-year-old was trying not to cause more trouble. I looked at Tamsin one time, just once. My sister stared back at me with an expression of pure annoyance, as if I was the one being unreasonable, as if comforting my devastated child was somehow an inconvenience to her schedule. I turned around and carried Willa out through the back. I did not say goodbye to anyone. I did not cause a scene. I just left. I sat in my car in the parking lot for almost an hour, holding Willa in my lap while she cried herself into exhaustion. The sun was setting over the vineyard, casting that perfect golden light my sister had planned her entire wedding around, and I watched it through the windshield while my daughter's tears soaked through my dress. She kept asking me the same question over and over again. What did I do wrong, Mommy? Why was Aunt Tamsin mad at me? I practiced so hard. I did everything right. What did I do wrong? I did not have an answer for her. How do you explain to an 8-year-old that some people care more about appearances than they care about the people who love them? How do you tell your child that her aunt chose a photograph over her feelings? I just held her tighter and told her she did nothing wrong. I told her she was perfect and beautiful and that I was so proud of her. I told her that sometimes adults make mistakes and that Aunt Tamsin's behavior was not her fault. Eventually, Willa fell asleep in my arms, worn out from crying. I drove us back to the hotel, carried her inside, and tucked her into bed, still wearing her flower girl dress because I could not bear to wake her. Then I sat on the edge of my own bed in the dark room and stared at my phone. The messages started coming around 8 o'clock. First from my mother. Where did you go? You embarrassed the entire family by leaving like that. Tamsin is devastated that you made her wedding about yourself. You need to apologize. I read the message 3 times, certain I must be misunderstanding. My daughter had been publicly humiliated in front of 300 people, and I was the one who needed to apologize? I was the one who had done something wrong? More messages followed, from cousins, from aunts, from bridesmaids I barely knew. All of them carried the same tone. How could you do this to Tamsin? How could you ruin her special day? She worked so hard on this wedding, and you made a scene by leaving. Not one single person asked about Willa. Not one person asked if my child was okay. Not one person acknowledged that an 8-year-old had been reduced to tears in front of a crowd and then dismissed like she was an inconvenience. I could not sleep. I lay in that hotel bed listening to Willa's soft breathing and feeling something harden inside my chest. For years I had kept quiet. For years I had swallowed my resentment and told myself that family peace was more important than my own feelings. But this was not about me anymore. This was about my daughter, and I was done protecting people who refused to protect her. Around midnight, I started scrolling through my phone aimlessly. I was not looking for anything in particular. I was just trying to distract myself from the anger burning in my stomach. I opened social media and found myself looking through old photos from Tamsin's engagement party, the one held back in March at some fancy restaurant downtown. I do not know what made me stop on one particular photo. Something about it caught my eye. It was a group shot, maybe 15 people crowded together near the bar, and Tamsin had posted it months ago with some caption about being surrounded by love. But in the background, slightly out of focus, stood Dawson with his arm around a woman I did not recognize. I enlarged the photo and looked closer. The woman was looking up at Dawson with an expression that seemed too familiar, too intimate. His hand rested on her hip in a way that struck me as wrong. Not the way you touch a casual acquaintance, the way you touch someone you know very well. I recognized her then. Meredith Sable. I had heard her name mentioned once or twice, a colleague from Dawson's office. She had not been invited to the wedding. At the time, I thought nothing of it, but now I wondered. I searched for Meredith's social media profiles and found them easily. She was not particularly private with her accounts. I started scrolling through her photos, looking for something, though I was not sure what. Then I found it. A vacation photo from June, Meredith on a beach somewhere tropical. 3 days later, Dawson had posted a photo from the same location, claiming he was there for a work conference. I kept digging, matching restaurant check-ins weeks apart. A necklace Dawson supposedly bought for his mother appearing around Meredith's neck. Comments quickly deleted, but not quickly enough. I took screenshots of everything. Then I found the comment that confirmed everything. On a photo from 2 weeks before the wedding, Meredith had written and then deleted a response to a friend's question about her relationship status. I had to search through cached pages to find it, but the words were clear. Can't wait until this wedding nonsense is over and we can finally be together for real. My hands were shaking. I had proof. Dawson was cheating on my sister, and I had proof. I did not sleep at all that night. I sat at the small desk in the hotel room with my laptop open, compiling every piece of evidence I had found. Screenshots of matching locations, photos with timestamps that proved Dawson and Meredith had been in the same places at the same times. The deleted comment I had managed to recover. The necklace that appeared on both Meredith's neck, and in a gift receipt Dawson had posted months ago claiming it was for his mother. By the time the sun started coming through the curtains, I had printed everything at the hotel business center and placed it all in a plain, manila envelope. Willa woke up around 7, still in her flower girl dress. She looked at me with swollen eyes and asked if we could go home. I told her yes, we would leave soon, but first I had one thing I needed to do. I helped her change into comfortable clothes, braided her hair, and took her down to the hotel restaurant for breakfast. She barely ate. She just pushed her pancakes around her plate and stared out the window. I knew from the wedding itinerary that Tamsin and Dawson were hosting a private brunch for immediate family at 10 o'clock that morning before leaving for their honeymoon flight. It was meant to be an intimate celebration, one final gathering before the newlyweds disappeared to some tropical resort for 2 weeks. I had not planned to attend. After what happened at the ceremony, I assumed I was no longer welcome. But plans change. I left Willa with a cousin I trusted, one of the few family members who had actually asked if she was okay the night before. Then I drove to the venue with the envelope sitting on my passenger seat. The brunch was being held in a private room at the Vineyard restaurant. I could see them through the windows as I walked up. Tamsin in a white sundress looking radiant and refreshed, as if yesterday's cruelty had not happened at all. Dawson beside her in a linen shirt, his arm around her shoulders, laughing at something someone had said. My mother at the head of the table beaming with satisfaction, the perfect family portrait. I walked in without knocking. Every head turned toward me. Tamsin's smile disappeared the moment she saw my face. "Corinne, I did not think you would have the nerve to show up after the scene you caused yesterday." I ignored her. I walked directly to where Dawson was sitting, my heels clicking against the hardwood floor. He looked up at me with that smooth, practiced smile. "Corinne, good morning. Can I help you with something? I need to speak with you privately." He laughed, glancing at Tamsin for backup. "Whatever you have to say, you can say in front of my wife. We have no secrets." I placed the envelope on the table in front of him. Then she should see this too. Something flickered in Dawson's eyes, just for a second, so quick that no one else would have noticed. But I saw it. Fear. He reached for the envelope, but Tamsin was faster. She grabbed it and tore it open before he could stop her. The room went silent as she pulled out the stack of papers and began flipping through them. Her face changed as she read. First confusion, then disbelief, then something cold and terrible that I had never seen on my sister's face before. "What is this?" Her voice was barely above a whisper. Dawson started talking immediately, his words tumbling over each other. "That is not what it looks like. Meredith is just a friend from work. Your sister is obviously trying to sabotage our marriage because she is jealous. She has always been jealous of you. This is exactly what she wants, to ruin your happiness." Tamsin held up one of the printouts. Her hand was trembling. "There is a hotel receipt here, Dawson, from the night of our engagement party. You told me you had food poisoning. You said you went back to your apartment alone because you did not want to get me sick." Dawson's mouth opened and closed. No words came out. "The reservation is for 2 people." Tamsin's voice cracked. "A suite. For 2 people." My mother stood up from her chair. "Corinne, how could you do this? On the morning after her wedding? What is wrong with you?" I turned to face her. "What is wrong with me? Yesterday, my daughter was humiliated in front of 300 people because she stumbled while dropping flower petals. She is 8 years old. She cried for hours. And not one person in this family asked if she was okay. You were all so concerned about perfect photographs of a marriage built on lies." I looked at Tamsin. "I did not do this to hurt you. I did this because you deserve to know who you actually married. What you do with that information is your choice." Tamsin stared at her husband. "Get out. Tamsin, baby, please. We can work through this. It was a mistake. She meant nothing." I said, "Get out. I will have your things shipped to wherever Meredith lives." Dawson left the brunch that morning with nothing but his wallet and his car keys. He tried calling Tamsin 47 times over the next 3 days. She never answered once. By the end of the week, she had contacted a lawyer and begun the annulment process. The marriage that had cost $80,000 and 18 months of obsessive planning was dissolved in less than 6 weeks. The fallout was immediate and brutal. Dawson moved in with Meredith, but their relationship collapsed within 2 months. Apparently, the excitement of sneaking around lost its appeal once they were actually free to be together. Meredith discovered that Dawson had been messaging other women the entire time they were having their affair. She kicked him out, and last I heard, he had moved to another state to escape the mess he had created. My mother blamed me for everything. For weeks, she called me constantly, telling me I had destroyed my sister's happiness, that I had humiliated the family, that I should have kept my mouth shut and let Tamsin discover the truth on her own. I stopped answering her calls. I had spent my entire life trying to earn her approval, and I finally understood that it was never going to come. She had chosen Tamsin a long time ago, and no amount of sacrifice on my part was going to change that. But something unexpected happened as the weeks passed. More details about Dawson began to surface, hidden credit card debt he had kept secret from Tamsin, a previous engagement he had never mentioned that ended when his fiancée discovered he was cheating, a pattern of lies and manipulation that stretched back years. Even my mother eventually had to admit that the marriage had been doomed from the start, and that I had only accelerated an inevitable disaster. Tamsin did not speak to me for almost 3 months. I gave her space. I understood that she needed time to process her humiliation and grief, and I knew that some part of her still blamed me for being the messenger. I did not push. I simply waited. Then one evening in January, I heard a knock at my front door. I opened it to find my sister standing on my porch in the cold, her eyes red, her face bare of makeup. She looked smaller than I had ever seen her, fragile in a way that Tamsin had never allowed herself to appear. "I came to apologize," she said. "To Willa." I hesitated for a moment, then stepped aside and let her in. Willa was sitting on the couch doing homework. She looked up when Tamsin entered, and I saw a flicker of uncertainty cross her face. She had not seen her aunt since the wedding. She had not forgotten what happened. Tamsin walked over and knelt down in front of my daughter. She took a deep breath before she spoke. "Willa, I need to tell you something. What I did at my wedding was wrong. I was cruel to you, and you did not deserve any of it. You were perfect that day. You were beautiful and brave, and you did everything right. I was so worried about my photographs and my decorations and what everyone would think that I forgot what actually mattered. I hurt you, and I am so deeply sorry." Willa studied her aunt's face for a long moment. Then, because my daughter has a heart bigger than anyone I have ever known, she leaned forward and wrapped her arms around Tamsin's neck. "It is okay, Aunt Tamsin. I forgive you." Tamsin broke down crying. She held on to Willa like she was holding on to a lifeline, and I watched my sister finally let go of the perfect image she had been clinging to her entire life. Later that night, after Willa went to bed, Tamsin and I sat at my kitchen table drinking coffee. She told me she had been doing a lot of thinking since her marriage fell apart. She realized that she had spent so many years chasing perfection, that she had pushed away everyone who actually loved her. She had chosen appearances over authenticity, and it had cost her everything. I was so awful to you growing up, she admitted. I knew Mom favored me, and I used it. I let you do all the hard work with Dad when he was sick because I was too focused on my own life. I have been selfish and cruel, and you still tried to protect me from marrying a liar. I reached across the table and took her hand. You are my sister. That is what family does. 6 months later, Sunday dinners at Tamsin's apartment became a regular tradition. She moved into a smaller place after selling the house she and Dawson had bought together. She started therapy. She began rebuilding her life on a foundation of honesty instead of perfection. One Sunday, Willa presented Tamsin with a drawing she had made. It showed the three of us holding hands, stick figures with big smiles, slightly crooked and completely imperfect. Tamsin hung it on her refrigerator right in the center, and she told Willa it was the most beautiful artwork she had ever received. I learned something important through all of this. For years, I believed that keeping the peace meant staying silent. I thought being a good sister meant swallowing my hurt and pretending everything was fine. But real love is not about protecting people from the truth. Real love is about honoring them enough to be honest, even when honesty is painful. My daughter taught me that courage does not mean never being afraid. It means standing up for what is right, even when your voice shakes. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do for your family is refuse to let them live a lie. If this story touched your heart, I would love for you to share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment below and tell me about a time when you had to stand up for someone you love. And if you have not already, please subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss another story. Your support means everything to me, and I cannot wait to share more with you soon. Thank you for watching, and remember, you are braver than you believe.